Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. Hope you had happy holidays and hope you have a happy new year. We're going to start this year with an upgrade in quality for our channel, and I'm going to touch a subject that's been highly requested for a while. So in this video we're going to be talking about landscape layer blend materials. So as you can see, I have 3 different layers here. So if I open my instance over here, you're gonna see that I have plenty of parameters here. Some of them will be familiar if you've opened the latest Megascans, but some of them is something that we're going to be creating in this video just to give a little bit more control to our layer blending. Now, before we get into it, there's the Patreon where you can help out support the channel. I also have a brand new affiliate link for Flip Normals. If you need an asset or if you need any other tutorials, they're the best place to go. And if you use my link, the channel will get a kickback without any cost to you. But if you cannot do any of those, remember the best way to support me is by leaving a like, leaving me a comment for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe if you haven't, and ring that bell for notification. All right, here we are in our map. And what I have here is I just have the river from the water system in Unreal Engine. And I just built a really quick landscape with the blueprint brushes, which makes it super easy and super quickly to build a very nice landscape inside Unreal Engine without having to rely on other programs. Now this tutorial is going to be about the material blendings, but there will be another tutorial about these other 2 things, so stay tuned for that. To get us started, the first thing you're going to need is to import some Megascans into your project. As you can see, I'm in 4.26 and I already have my plugin here. Now in this empty folder that I created on my project, I'm just going to right click and create a material. I'm going to call it land blend. I'm gonna open it, and as you can see, we just have a basic material node. Now for this, what we're going to do is we're going to bring in a layer blend material for the landscape. So if you're new to this, make sure you watch my previous video. It's going to be linked in the description down below. And even though it's on an outdated version of the Quixel material, it goes through the basics of the landscape blending material. There's just many concepts that I cannot go over in here, otherwise it's going to be too long. So for that, I'm just going to do a landscape layer blend, and I'm going to create three arrays. So 1, 2, and 3. You can add as many as you want to. I'm just going to add 3 for the purpose of this, and I'm going to name them layer A, B, and C. All right, we have our 3 layers around here, and what we need is an input for these layers. The input is going to come from the Megascan material. So if we go into, let's say, I'm just going to save this, and I'm going to go into these mossy ground. I'm going to double click it, and I'm going to search for its parent, which is this one right here. Click the magnifying glass so it takes you to it. Now, what we want is we want this whole thing into a function, because otherwise we are just going to be adding lots of these and our material is going to look terrible. However, I'm not going to talk about displacement here. I will have to talk about displacement in another video because it's a little bit complex, and again, I don't want this to be a 2-hour video. So yes, I will make a video about adding displacement to the blend material, but I will do it later on. So what we're going to grab is we're going to grab everything all the way up to here. So we're going to Control C. So make sure you selected everything, Control C. And now the second thing, now that we've copied that, we need to create a material function. And again, I have another tutorial on functions in the channel if you want to see that. But the reason why we're using functions is because otherwise this is going to get extremely messy. So we're going to look here in materials and textures, and we're going to look for our material function. I'm going to call this layer A. I'm actually going to duplicate this a couple more times so we have a layer B and layer C. All right, so we go into layer A. You're gonna see that there's an error here because there needs to be something going into the output, and right now we don't have anything. So we're gonna go in and do Control V over here. I'm sorry. Control V for pasting. And what we're gonna do is we're going to bring this in to this bin, and the error goes away. And that's it, we got our very first function. Now we're going to be dragging this function directly into the landscape layer blend. So I'm just going to apply to save that function. And then when I come back over here, I can drag this, and we can see that we just have a teeny tiny node that we can just plug in here instead of plugging all of that in here. So we're gonna do the same thing for the other ones, but before that, there's a little bit of a customization that I want to add to it. So because I want to be using a material instance, remember, is a material where you can change the variables. For that, I want to kind of mess with the names of this, because if you just copy and paste this into all of these, you're not going to have access to all of the three of them. You're going to have access to just one row of these parameters because they're all named the same. So we have to rename some of them, and I'm going to give them each a different group. So this is going to be what I'm going to do is I'm going to do layer A underscore, and I'm going to copy and paste that over all the names. And I'm not going to do it with displacement just yet because we're not going to be using that. Now, the other thing that we could change in order to get this a little bit more tidy, or tidier, I think that's how you say it, is to change this group name. So right now it says texture map. So it's all going to be into these texture map group. Now I just want to create another group called layer A maps. And this is going to be the group that I'm going to add to everything. So just going to copy and paste this. Or if you don't want to keep copying and pasting over everything, you can just select the one over here that we already have in there. All right, now that we are at this step, there's something that I want to show you. And for that, we'll have to put our material together, at least with what we have right now. So I'm going to go into the landscape layer blend. So we already have one node. We can make this work with one node. I just want to show you something in the instance. So for this to work, we're going to have to add another node in between these two that can actually break and show me all the material attributes and parameters so we can plug them in to the final node. Now, if you've seen my RVT video, it's exactly the same thing. So what we need to do is right click, break material attribute, and we're going to pull this pin inside this pin, and we can just plug all the pins that we need to. We don't need metallic, so I'm not going to do that. Roughness and normal. I'm going to save this. And after that, I'm going to create an instance. So just right click, create a material instance is the first thing that's on top. Now I double click this material instance, and what I wanted to show you is how these parameters show up here. And the new group that we created called layer A is now down here. So we're going to be creating subsequent groups so we can just have a material like this. So we can have just master material, master blend material, if you will. And all you need to do is select the Megascans you want to blend in and just have them here, so you don't have to go through this process every single time. However, there's a couple things that I also want to adjust. So you see that we have the tiling offset right here. If we leave this as it is, we're gonna have the same tiling and offset for every single texture that we add here. And we may not want to do this because sometimes you may have one of the materials for like the background and the other material for the foreground, or you just want to mix them up and you want to have different tiling factors. So that's another thing that we need to change, and we're going to be doing the same thing that we did before. So I'm just going to go into my layer A, and all you have to go into is this main function tiling. So we just double click here, and I don't want to change this one because this is the one that came with everything. You can change it if you want to, but I like to make copies just in case something goes wrong. I don't have to re-import anything, and I just can create copies and keep making mistakes until I get it right. So what we want to do is browse, so we can look for this function right here, and we can just right click, duplicate it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this function into the folder that I'm using. So over here, move here. Now don't worry about this, it's just telling me that it got moved. And now I'm going to go into this function, but before that I want to rename it to mf tiling A, and I'm also going to do another one for B and C. All right, so I'm just going to do the A one, and the other ones are just going to be exactly the same thing. So we're going into this function right here, and we can see that there are certain parameters that we could change. If you're going to be messing with the rotation angle in the different textures, you can also change the naming of this one. I'm just going to go and change this one right here because the tiling on offset is what I use the most. Actually, I've never used this rotation and angle one. So I'm just going to go into this parameter, which is the only parameter that's changeable. Everything else here is just math notes, so you're not going to see them. And we're going to change this to A for layer A. And in global, we can change global to global layer A. Now, if you don't want to add the group, you don't have to. This is just to make things tidier. So I'm going to apply this, and I'm going to go back into layer A, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in this one right here. I'm actually going to just hold control and bring all these into this one, and same deal here. And I can just delete this, and we're going to save this. Now we go into our instance, and you're going to see that over here in global, we have global layer A, which is the group that we just created, and we have our tiling offset for the layer A. And we're going to do the same thing with layer B and C. So I'm just going to go do that real quick, and I'll be right back. All right, now over here, what we're going to do is we already have our layer A. I'm actually going to switch out of that, and we need to create the other two layers. So I'm actually going to go into layer B, and all we have to do is just go into layer A, just so it's easier. Control Z for copy and Control V for paste. And just like I showed you before, rearrange that and make sure you can plug this into your output. That'll get rid of your error. And do not forget to change your names over here, otherwise it's not gonna show up in your instance material because it all will have the same name. But all we have to do now is change the letter over here to the letter B, and over here on the name. So now we have 2 layers and another layer group that we can select. So I'm just gonna speed this up, and I'll be back in a second. All right, that is it. Now the next thing that I'll be doing here is bringing in the tiling B. So I'm gonna go back to layer B, and I'm gonna bring in this, and I'm going to again switch out, hold control, switch out all of these, and switch this one out too, and get rid of this one, apply it. And now we're going to go over here and we're going to bring in our second layer, which is layer B. And we're going to plug it into its respective node. All right, then now after saving it, I can go here into my instance, and you're going to see that now I actually have 2 sets of tiling. I have a global layer A and I have a global layer B. I also have a layer A maps for all these maps right here, and I have a layer B maps for all these maps over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing layer C as exactly the same process that I did with both of them, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, I'm all done with layer C, and I'm just going to bring it in here, and I'm going to plug it into layer C. I'm going to apply this. So it saves into our material instance, and now we can come into our material instance and we can see that we have A, B, and C. And we also have A for texture maps, B for texture maps, and C for texture maps. So pretty much we have a master material that we can use for landscape blending, and we can also control the tiling of each individual material. Now, if you want to get really deep into it, you could do the renaming for all of these adjustments. If you're going to need to adjust any of the other layers, you could do that. Just change the name so that way they will appear into every single slot. Now, let's get to actually adding some Megascans into this. All right, so I'm gonna go into my Megascans. I actually want to have this one be my base layer for everything. And I'm just gonna go into this one and we're going to add it to layer A. So I'm just going to turn on all of these, and we're gonna go and get our Albedo, just right here. Gonna get our Roughness. We're gonna get our normal map. The detail normal is if you imported that as a secondary map, so we're not going to be doing that here. So I'm just going to play with these 3 maps. And for our next layer, I'm going to have, let's see, because I have 2 mossy grounds. I'm deciding which one I want to put here underneath the river. So I think I'm gonna go with this one. We're gonna go with this one underneath the river, and we're gonna go with the second one kind of like surrounding the river right here. So for layer B, I'm gonna go with Albedo, turn it on, make sure this one's selected, and put it here. Turn on the normal, and make sure this one's selected, put it here, and turn on the roughness and put it where it's supposed to be. Okay. Now for the third one, we're just going to add the one that I have left over here. So we have Albedo, normal, and roughness. So select the Albedo. Going to do normal and roughness. All right. Now that we have all of these, I'm actually going to go into my folder, and we're going to add the instance into the landscape. So I'm going to click on my landscape, and I'm going to throw in my instance over here. And you can see once you throw it into your slot, it's complete. You don't have to do anything whatsoever. Of course, I'm kidding. That was the same joke that I made last time. Sorry about that. You'll have to go into the landscape mode. The reason why this looks like this is because our layer blend node doesn't have any information as to where it's going to put the materials. So now that we're in landscape mode, if we go into paint, you can see that our materials are right here. So if you see the materials standing on this side once you go into the paint part of landscape mode, that means that everything went fine and dandy and you're good to go. Now the next thing that we need to do, we need to create layer information so the engine knows where to put these layers and how it's going to be painting it. So we're just going to click this plus, weight layer blend, and just give it a name. I'm just going to call it layer A. Give it a little bit to compile, and there you go. We have our first layer. I'm going to do the same thing with the other layers. Okay, and there you go. We have all of our layers there. One thing that I'm going to do is we're going to reduce the radius to, let's say, 200, so it's not that big. And let's say we wanted to paint with layer B. So I'm going to select layer B, and we can start painting over here. It's going to do that while it compiles. But as you can see, we are painting on the landscape with our second layer. Let me actually get out of the camera so you can better see what's going on. We are painting with our secondary layer. And if we wanted to, we could paint underneath the river with layer C. Just wait for it to compile, and we just paint this layer all around our river. And you can have as many layers as you want to. The other thing is you can go here and modify its strength. So right now I have a strength of 1, but let's say I wanted to change this to 0.3, which is I think the default one. And you can see that it's a little bit more faded instead of being like one single stamp, so you could do that. Now the other thing that we can do is we could start modifying the tiling. So let me paint a little bit more over here so you guys can see what's going on, and we can start modifying the tiling of each and every one of this. So I'm gonna go back into where my instance is. I'm gonna open my instance. I'm actually going to make this smaller so we can have it to one side and we can see what's going on. All right, let's just get into I think right here it's fine. So we have all three materials. Now what we can do is we can go up here to our tiling and offset. Let's do layer A first. Let's see the background, how it reacts first. And we're going to check this, and let's make this really tiny. And there you go. Now there's a way that we could arrange this with the camera. So as you get further away, it increases the size, and as you get closer, it reduces the size. So it actually looks much better. We're not going to get into that in this tutorial because this is already long enough. I just want to show you how to do the basics of a blending material after the update that Quixel made. So the next thing is let's try to change the tiling of this material that's along the riverside, and this is layer C. So we're just going to turn this one on, and let's say we wanted it to be 0.5 by 0.5, or I don't know, maybe 0.1 should do a trick. There you go. So as you can see, we have a nice riverbed around here. We actually can go back to select mode so we don't have that cursor thingy. And as you can see, we have a variation, and it looks much better because we got rid of all that tiling that was going on. So it actually looks much better in between this material and this material. We can also change the tiling of this one right here. So we go into layer B. Let's say we want layer B to be something exaggerated, let's do super tiled material. So we do 15 by 15, and that's what you get if you tile it too much. Just to show you that it can go both ways, but let's just do it to something more reasonable, like 0.3. We could do something even lower than that, but I think this is a good start. So as you can see, we have a nice transition from this material to this material. Maybe the transition is a little bit harsher here because I did the strength of 1 instead of the strength of 0.3. That's why you have to make sure you check the strength of your brush whenever you are painting your layers. But this is the way to do it. This is how you do a layer blend material. All right, everybody, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed the upgrading quality that we're going to have here in the channel from now on. Don't forget the Patreon if you want to support the channel. If not, remember, liking, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, and turning on that notification is the best way to support me. There's also that link for Flip Normals if you need any other tutorials, or if you need some asset, you can use my link and no cost to you, and it will give me a kickback for the channel. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.